Everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday. Apologize I had to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over the weekend and I needed some time to catch up to making all of the videos that I wanted to make. So without further ado, let me address what I wanted to talk about, and that has to do with the 80s film Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is considered to be, I think, one of those memorable 80s films that a lot of people have gravitated towards over the years. It's probably up there as far as the Breakfast Club is concerned, which was another film that did focus on sort of the teenage demographic, which again is something that we don't really see utilized again in a lot of films. It's something that really is not explored, or at least explored in a clever and interesting way. It seems like a lot of teen movies play down to the lowest common denominator. And it's nice to see here that it doesn't do that, and actually tries to be a little bit more smart in its presentation. But what's really interesting is the fact that Ferris Bueller's Day Off is about what really the title basically says, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. In other words, Ferris Bueller, being the main character, decides to sort of fake that he is sick in order to get a day off school, basically. And you'll sort of see how he goes about doing this and how he kind of goes about on his sort of adventures with his friends on this sort of supposed day off that he has. And it's quite interesting and unique in how it approaches this, because although it is a very simple premise, it's more so about sort of the journey that Ferris Bueller undergoes, rather than more so about the real ultimate destination of the film. And what I think is actually something that really works to the film's advantage is the fact that it is trying to hone in on these messages that I think a lot of teenagers in particular can identify with, and even adults to a certain extent, or even kids probably too, and that's the whole idea of sort of this rebellious nature and sort of wanting to kind of explore and, kind of live your own life and not be kind of confined into the sort of mundaneness of school. And I think that's something that's definitely utilized, but not in a way that is done effectively in the way this film does it, because it's oftentimes noted for being kind of overly raunchy in rebellion, but here it's very kind of, it's not as, it doesn't try to, play into the whole risque factor. And although Ferris Bueller has his flaws, you still get an overall likability out of his character and what he sort of kind of goes through, and how his whole journey is kind of an expression of kind of thinking kind of outside the box and just kind of doing something that he individually kind of decides what to do. And he sort of even notes too, even towards the end of the film, how that life kind of passes you by. You might as well kind of like enjoy your life. In other words, don't feel like you have to be constantly confined to something that you feel really limited to. And I think that's something that really does resonate with that particular teenage demographic. And again, they do it in a way that's smart and that's not dumbed down, and it's not like overly raunchy, and it does it in a very balanced and yet open way, to the point of where you can really get behind Ferris Bueller's sort of decision to kind of leave the school environment for one day. And you'll sort of see too how the principal kind of gets involved with this, and obviously the famous line of Ben Stein going, Bueller, that's sort of remained a little bit iconic. So, it is really trying to hone in on this idea of the classroom being so mundane, and how it's sort of making fun of it, and in doing so introducing possibilities that I think a lot of kids sort of long for in their youth, which is just to kind of do their own thing and kind of explore themselves. Um, and I think it's funny, it has this wit to it, and its overall presentation I think is satisfying, and I think a lot of people really remember Ferris Bueller. It's just one of those titles that kind of just sticks out, uh, and in doing so, it presents something that, again, I think a lot of films, especially teenagers, at least films that focus on teenagers, really lack, and that's just this honest sincerity along with trying to be kind of at least a little bit smart. Um, and I like the fact that it tries to not talk down to the youth and instead kind of tries to, lift them up a little bit and kind of ultimately understand sort of the experiences that they go through. But I think that's really all I can say though about this particular film. I think it's worth an investment if you are interested in these kinds of films. I think in particular it does follow similar beats to The Breakfast Club, but it is rather unique in its overall presentation because, again, the plot focus is completely different, the characters are different, and there is this sense of, doing something kind of rebellious, and it's more about the journey, whereas The Breakfast Club is more about the development of the characters and how they interact. Whereas with Ferris Bueller's is more about exploration and the whole journey that the characters sort of experience together rather than the bonds and the trials and tribulations of each character that The Breakfast Club kind of talks about. But I think that's really, again, all I can say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.